It's Air Jordan 14, and we're back with another episode of SST Sports Talk, giving you the weekly happenings in HBCU sports. And of course, since we're in basketball season, you know that's what we'll be talking about. So we're going to start off with a little SIAC news. I'm going to give you kind of some player recognition, and then kind of give you a little in background of whatnot on the happenings of each team this week. So starting off with the men's here, the SIAC Player of the Week was Morehouse's Darius Williams, the 6'3" sophomore point guard out of Detroit. He's actually scored in double figures in 12 of the 13 games this season, including 5 of which he scored 20 or more. And in wins last week against Lane and Kentucky State, Mr. Williams averaged 21 and 7 rebounds. And he's leading Morehouse to a 7-game winning streak in which they're currently on, and I'll talk about that shortly here when I get to Morehouse. Now, the men's newcomer of the week was Duanaway Barnes. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Junior from Stillman, the 6'1" guard, averaged 15.3 points and 2.7 rebounds in Stillman's 3 wins last week. And Jarrell Stevenson, junior out of Payne, and the 6'5" guard out of Augusta, averaged 13 and 11, while helping the Bruins to a 1-1 record this past week. Now, other top performers out of the men's side include Shamar Nolan out of Lane College, Marcus Good from Benedict, Ladarius Roan from Stillman, Mario Jordan from Payne, and Albany State's Jerome Hamilton. Now, let's get into the happenings of each team. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. That's just how I've got them, so I'm just going to give a little bit on what's going on with each team, starting with Albany State, who has a 3-11 record overall, and they're 2-6 in the SIAC. They started off 0-4 in the early phases of conference play. They've actually won 2 of their last 3, and last week they had 2 home wins against Lane, 70-67, and Payne College, 69-64. And they've got upcoming games against Claflin tomorrow, and then Clark Atlanta on the 31st. Benedict, who is 10-5, and they're 6-1 in the SIAC. They're also on a 7-game winning streak, which includes wins over Tuskegee, Albany State, and Fort Valley. And they're now in 2nd place in the Eastern Division of the SIAC. Let's see what else we have going on with them. A big game, they take on Morehouse this Saturday, and a big game for first place in the Eastern Division. Let's move on to Claflin, which is 6-10 overall, and they're even in the conference at 4-4. They ended a 2-game losing streak with a 65-48 victory over Clark Atlanta. Their next game, of course, unfortunately, they lost to Morehouse, 67-64. They'll be traveling to, of course, Albany State on Saturday, and then return Monday to face Fort Valley State. Clark Atlanta, they're 2-12, and they're 1-5 in conference. It's been a rough season for them, obviously. They've actually lost their last 2 games. 89-70 at Payne, and then 79-61 to Benedict. So they'll be hosting Claflin next Monday, and Morehouse at the end of the month on the 31st. Speaking of Morehouse, they're 9-5 overall, and they're 7-0 in the SIAC. They're the top leading team overall and in the Eastern Division. They've won its first 7 conference games, which extends they're currently running an 8-game winning streak. Last week they saw wins over Kentucky State 69-59 and Claflin 67-62. 64 on the road. Up next, they'll play, as I mentioned earlier, Benedict for the lead of the Eastern Division. Payne College is at 6-8 and 4-4 in the SIAC. Actually, they've kind of been inconsistent here. Last week they won 89-70 over Fort Valley, and then dropped the game to Albany State. They'll be playing actually Augusta State. Who's calling right now? I'll call him back. They'll be playing Augusta State, a D2 team, on Thursday, and then they'll be traveling to Atlanta to play Clark Atlanta on Monday. And in other news, one of their guards, very talented Mario Jordan, joined the 1,000 point club. So congratulations to Mr. Mario Jordan. Kentucky State is 6-9 and they're 4-5 in the SIAC, and they started their week off losing by 10, 69-59 to Morehouse, and then they followed that up by another defeat to Tuskegee with the same score, 69-59. And the week ended with an 85-78 loss to Stillman. So they're actually riding a 3-game losing streak, and they'll be playing Miles on Saturday, and then followed by LeMoyne-Owen on Monday. Lane they're really struggling at 1-12 overall, and they're 0-9 in the SIAC. Wow. They went 0-2 against some of the top teams in the Western Division of the conference, Stillman and Kentucky State. They will try again to get off the conference schneid this week against LeMoyne-Owen and Miles. And speaking of that LeMoyne-Owen Ball Club, they're up next at 5-12 overall, and they're 3-5 in the SIAC. And they had a 1-2 week last week in league play. They lost to Fort Valley and sandwiched that with a victory, a 1-point victory over Albany State, which was led by a 19-point performance by Samuel Hill. And they lost 80-73 at Miles College. Up next are games against Lane at home and then Kentucky State on the road. Miles, excuse me. Now they're 6-9 overall and 3-4 in SIAC play. They've won 3 straight against Albany State, 75-69. A 2-point win over Fort Valley State, 62-60. And they beat LeMoyne-Owen by 7, score of 80-73 here. Miles will play out of conference Concordia Selma, and then on Saturday they'll be heading to Frankfort to play Kentucky State. Stillman is actually winners of 6 straight, and they're 9-0 since their Birthright Gym has been renovated. They went 3-0 this past week. On the 17th, they beat Claflin 68-62. On the 19th, they beat Lane 90-68, and on the 21st, they beat Kentucky State 85-78. On the 28th, they'll be traveling to Tuskegee, and then on the 31st, they'll be going to LeMoyne-Owen, and they'll host Miles on February the 2nd. The winner of the Stillman-Tuskegee game will have sole possession of the Western Division of the SIAC. And last but not least is Tuskegee, who's 6-10 and 7-2 in the SIAC. They improved 7-2 in conference play with wins over Kentucky State, a 69-53 overtime win, and Lane 86-72 at home. In a battle, as I've said, they'll be hosting Stillman in a battle for the Eastern Division of the SIAC. So that concludes this week of happenings in the SIAC men's basketball. Be sure to check back in for the women's side of action, and be sure to check back in for happenings in the rest of the HBCU sports divisions. And we're signing off for SST Sports Talk.